Sheldon Schorer, former chair of the Democratic Party in Israel, thank you for joining us.
Pleasure.
Sheldon, when we look at the popular vote count as it is now the next day, we see that Kamala Harris underperformed Joe Biden in 2020 by upwards of 15 million votes or more. How do you understand that, sitting as a veteran of Democratic Party politics?
Well, I see that people are generally unhappy. And if people are generally unhappy, then they like to throw out whoever's in charge. So Mr. Trump came in originally by saying that he's new and fresh and he will save the country, and he's not part of the swamp that is Washington. Of course, he later became the swamp that is Washington, and but people are unhappy. Trump did a good job in telling people that they're unhappy by saying things like the economy is terrible, although that's not true. The economy is doing terrific. The unemployment is low, the stock market is high, inflation has been curbed, but he puts himself forth as it's terrible and he's the Messiah. He can save the country and you got to elect him. And people bought it. What can I say?
Well, it seems that here in Israel also people, the sentiment really went that way. We saw there was a well-publicized poll by Channel 12, not exactly a right-wing outlet, that was published about a week and a half ago, showing that 66% of Israelis preferred Donald Trump to Kamala Harris. Are Israelis misreading the situation? Do you believe that Donald Trump will be a stronger candidate for Israel's interests?
All right. First of all, now that he's the president, I truly hope so. I have several challenges for him, such as he said that on October 7th, if he were the president, it never would have happened. All right, come on. I don't think the Arabs look to him. I don't think Hamas gets its cues from him, but he said it. So I would like to see him do something about the current situation. Will he bring an end to the war? Will he bring back all the hostages? Will he ensure that Israel will be secure and not have to face a threat like this? I'd like to know what he plans to do about the Iranian nuclear threat. The Iranian nuclear threat was existent at the time that he was a president, and he fumbled it terribly. We had a nuclear agreement which said that Iran is unable to develop for 15 years a nuclear weapon, and they were holding to that. They were keeping to that, and gives America the right to inspect. He threw out that agreement, saying that America no longer has the right to inspect, that Iran is no longer limited to a 15-year ban on the development, without any plan B. There was no other thing in choice. He didn't put any further sanctions. He didn't open any negotiations, and he didn't undertake any military action. So I want to know, what is he going to do about the Iranian threat, which he said time and time again he will not allow Iran to have. What do you mean he don't want to allow? I don't believe him, because when he was president last time, he did allow. So I'm not so happy.
Well, Sheldon, I have to push back a little bit. When you say that he didn't put any new sanctions, Trump did put very severe sanctions on Iran that prohibited them from selling their oil. Any country that would buy their oil would not be able to do business with the United States. The Iranian regime was close to bankrupt. And when the Biden administration came in, they stopped enforcing those sanctions, which led to Iran signing a 25-year output deal with the Chinese Communist Party, from which they've benefited greatly. So I would push back a little bit on the sanctions issue, but I'd like to ask you about a headline that was in ARUTZ yesterday. Again, not exactly a right-wing outlet, and the front page of ARUTZ in English said, "U.S. expected to increase pressure on Israel to end Gaza war after election." Now that we're heading into the transition period and we have this lame duck presidency, what do you expect to see? Do you agree with that headline? What do you expect to see in terms of U.S. diplomacy vis-a-vis Israel and the war during this period between now and January?
Okay. First of all, both Biden and Kamala Harris have both said they would like to see an end to the war. and they would like to stop the suffering of Palestinians, which is one of the reasons. But at the same time, the hostages must all be returned, and Israel's safety and security must be observed. Now, will there be a hostage return of live hostages? I think that is a requirement. Was Hamas and Hezbollah ready to stop all bombing, etc.? I don't know. But if the United States is going to put pressure on either side, they'd be more effective dealing with Israel, putting pressure on Israel. And that worries me. It worries me also that Mr. Trump might do exactly the same thing, putting pressure on Israel. I think that Trump is basically an isolationist and does not get involved in foreign affairs to any extent. One evidence is that the last time he was president, they were entirely, he gave Netanyahu a free hand to deal with negotiations with the Palestinians, and it was very quiet about it. As a result, there was no negotiations and no advancement of any sort of peace process, especially since the Palestinians were suspicious of Trump and didn't think that he had the Palestinians' interests at heart. So will Mr. Trump do this, or will he just, because he's quite impetuous, say, all right, I'm settling this thing, I'm finished, there'll be a two-state solution, and that's that. And Israel has to accept it, whether or not the agreement of a two-state solution involves security for Israel by not having a hostile terrorist nation whose charter says we want to eliminate the state of Israel at its side. Is he capable of doing that? Sadly, yes. So I'm worried again.
All right, well, Sheldon, again, I have to push back a little bit. In the Time magazine interview with Donald Trump that was published in April, he said that he no longer believes in the efficacy of a two-state solution. He no longer supports that. We're not sure exactly what route he's going to take, perhaps some sort of expansion of the Abraham Accords. Look, we're all going to have to wait and see, and we're all, of course, praying for the well-being of the state of Israel. Sheldon Schorer, thank you so much for joining us.
I truly hope that I'm wrong on this. Okay, I really do, and I'm rooting for him. He is now my president as well, and I hope that he will act properly. It's just that previous actions and his previous administration gives me reason to pause.
Thank you, Sheldon.